Welcome to Spirit Behind the Screen. Each episode, your host, Marty McCurdy, deep dives on industry trends around high-reliability electronics and the supply chain in aerospace and defense. This is episode 61 with Spirit Vice President Zef Malik on the state of the semiconductor industry.
Hi, this is Marty McCurdy at Spirit Electronics with our podcast Behind the Screen, and today I have with me Zef Malik. Zef, always welcome to have you on the show.
My pleasure.
Great. I'm glad you came to Arizona. It's always helpful to have you in person as well. Today I actually was at the GPEC meeting sitting on the panel. I was honored to speak there, and the actual semiconductor state of the industry is really what the discussion was. And I know you and I talk a lot about what's happening in Vision 2030 in Saudi and what's happening with bringing, manufacturing back to the U.S. and, where does that fit in with the CHIPS Act money and small business, all these things. So I'd like to just kind of pick your brain a little bit today on like the technology battle, the threat that is China, all of these things and what you're seeing coming out of the Valley.
Certainly.
Jump right in.
I mean, there is a political aspect of technology, and that is the fear that the U.S. needs to, for national security purposes, have more of a domestic policy and a domesticization concept, which is contrary to how the world used to be as a world without borders, technological manufacturing, availability worldwide, and the suppliers that were the most cost-effective would prevail, and that were the most leading technological, innovative suppliers, predominantly coming out of Taiwan, would one day service 95% of the global semiconductor needs coming in from Taiwan. Mm-hmm. But as the Taiwan wildcard comes into play, as China flexes its muscle in terms of domination and eventual control of Taiwan, the political resonance here is that one fine day somebody would bomb TSMC and it will be history where the next year or 2 years we are not going to be able to get any semiconductors. Mm-hmm. That may not be true, but that does drive the political reality and the mindset and the vision. So I see an element of domesticization. I see a big push of race for AI, domination of AI, semiconductor control, chip control, manufacturing control. And we believe that we have the innovative power, but we may not have the manufacturing power. So the CHIPS Act, the mindset of bringing and enabling technologies into the U.S. Clearly is a first step to have the U.S. take charge of some domestic manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So they have obviously started to fund the large foundries, and in their minds and the opinion of the CHIPS Act people, they want to be able to go for the highest dollar value capability, which is a wafer foundry.
Sure.
I mean, I disagree with it a little bit. Primarily, I believe in more of an ecosystem of suppliers enabling everybody rather than just the big top guys doing wafer level work. But the push is going to be where we may see an evolution of multi-faceted domestic satellite, domestic content, domestic nucleus of manufacturing capabilities. And that may be Silicon Valley, that may be Arizona, that may be Idaho, that may be Colorado, and others, wherever proximity of resources, labor, talent, engineering, infrastructure is available.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that is an exciting time, but the concern that I see is that while we are working on bringing technology onshore, the rush for sanctions and imposing sanctions and how to navigate around sanctions is the biggest challenge that the semiconductor companies are facing going forward, because just look at NVIDIA. If a sanction is placed on them that you cannot sell this chip to a Chinese buyer, all of a sudden 20-30% of the product revenue is at stake.
Right.
So there's a big juggling act on part of the semiconductor manufacturers, distributors, domesticization, sanctions versus no sanctions. So I think it's very exciting and challenging times. But the good thing that I see is that the U.S. would be a recipient of a renaissance where technology, manufacturing, innovation, domestic manufacturing would be a forefront in the future.
Yep.
What it does for our pricing structure, all bets are off. We may have the same TV double in price because of the cost of manufacturing in the U.S. may be higher. We are used to getting all the goods cheaper from overseas because of high volume manufacturing and lower cost of manufacturing. So it's going to be a very interesting time as we navigate the challenges going forward.
Yes. It's exactly what we talked about at GPAC today in Phoenix. And that really is, obviously Arizona is vying for a big piece of this business. We have had a lot of money flowed in from the CHIPS Act. But at the end of the day, one of the speakers was mentioning like where we are from a national security standpoint, right? Which is certainly where Spirit plays in the marketplace. And that is that it's changing every day. We don't know if it's going to come, satellite to satellite. We don't know if it's a cyber attack. We don't know if it's a ground attack. Like nobody really knows. And the government is literally gearing up to cover all of these bases because you have to be aware and prepared for all of them, which is the big challenge. So I think AI does have a major play here on getting there faster and things like that. It's hard to adopt with all, some of the negativity surrounding it. But I think that the market pressure that you're talking about to have domestic content, I believe it can be done. I believe there's ways to get it done. I know collectively we as Spirit are headed down that path. But really it's our engagement with ASU, with GCU. The dean there has been here. We've talked to him. I spoke with him today about trying to get labor force and implementing early on to get these kids entrenched because our biggest challenge here has been hiring, right, from an engineering perspective. So even if we could bring some of that back, onshore from Asia, the engineering and the IP always was owned by the Americans, right? We only were outsourcing the labor piece of it. So now we're in a stranglehold trying to find enough engineers to support this IP that we have and bring the manufacturing back. So it's kind of twofold then.
Exactly. I think the post-COVID, the lesson learned on supply chain is still resonating, where the ability of the factories to come up to speed, manufacture, produce, and come up to ramp and a certain utilization was a signature that told us that not only is domesticization, but the ability to control the supply chain is going to be another major battle that we fight. Right. So supply chain mitigation, supply chain manufacturing, labor force, workforce, environmental considerations, manufacturing areas, cost control, all those challenges are going to be very unique. It's going to take a lot of political courage, political wisdom for us to navigate, and I'm hoping that we as a nation will show the resilience and the innovation that we normally have in technology to come to give us the best practices and solutions.
Yes, for sure. It was a bit of a comedy show this morning. We were talking about how do they get more companies, and I spoke about, having the ecosystem like we had in Silicon Valley. I believe that was part of the success there. And one of the things we brought up was the water. So if you don't live here, everybody sees on the news all of this, banter about no water in this neighborhood and that neighborhood. And Chris Camacho goes, we have water, and I go, look, that is the message. He goes, oh, we put out a big report, 5 pages long or whatever. I go, no, you need 5 words. We have water, here, come, right? Something like that. But the resources that are available definitely plays a factor in, right? Like the amount of water that it takes for fabs and just all the infrastructure, like going into Ohio now with Intel's fab and things like that. So it can't be ignored, but certainly I believe states and cities are stepping up to that challenge.
I agree. It takes progressive thinking. A fab may take 2 or 3 million gallons a day. Okay, and it's not only just fab; it's environmental waste. How you handle it, how you handle, the needs for energy. How do you handle climatic controls and environmental controls and transport? So I'm a firm believer. The ecosystem starts from small enterprises, small businesses that are facilitating to the nucleus, which is the technological hub. And it's not only just a fab or a fabrication or an assembly plant coming in. It is the chemical supplier, the machine shop guy, the fabrication guy, the small mom and pop company that does transportation and delivery of chemicals and gases and all that. So the ecosystem has to be thought of. And I believe that progressive cities such as Arizona have the right mindset to understand that it has to be a global pull and a global vision. Think global, act local kind of a scenario here. And I think it will take that thought process and not have a state that is politically hamstrung and has the ability to make decisions that are good for the country, good for the state, and not be hung up on trying to have political answers that are trying to cater to all. And this thing is going to be at a national priority, not just a priority that is suited for somebody's re-election campaign or a political convenience.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, there's more at stake here for sure. Certainly, not to switch gears, but I enjoyed the camaraderie and the patriotism at the Olympics this year, right? It was just lovely to see America pulling together as one, right? Rivals all the time, pull together. I'm like, why can't we do that every day?
Well, the next Olympics is here in the U.S.
I know, right?
And let's hope it is choreographed and executed as well. And I look forward to that. And yes, sports certainly bring things together. But it is certainly an opportunity to look forward to see America put the best of the best 4 years out.
I agree. Yeah. Just one closing, comment is about the Foundry and how long it takes and things. We obviously are exclusive access to the TI foundries, which we enjoy that relationship, and hats off to them, their ability to bring up a new fab and get production running or qualification running and 18 to 24 months, they had this massive plan, and we were just at the Lehigh facility. So you talk about how are they going to execute, and honestly, I saw the most sophisticated wafer transport systems, all automated. There was no humans in the fab now, and it's all running off of rails in the ceiling. It was super impressive, but I think that's how we're going to have to compete to get the price point we need, the production we need, et cetera, just to stay in the market and be viable. I
wholeheartedly agree. I think getting a factory online is going to be the challenge, because getting the right amount of contract, the lands, the specialty contractors to make clean rooms and things like that. But the future of manufacturing is going to be robotic. The future of manufacturing is going to be ultra clean rooms where there is no human presence. The future of manufacturing is going to be driven by AI. The future of manufacturing is going to be without an operator. So that will be exciting. And that is where I really believe that we will be able to bridge the differential between why industry went overseas because of cost reasons and labor resources and cost of labor. Somewhere along the line, this will equalize once automation, extensive mechanization, and robotic manufacturing comes into play. Then at that time, the innovation we have, the manufacturing cost differential will be no longer different between us and an Asian country, because the innovation and the plant utilization is a function of what we are producing and how well the manufacturing lines are doing. So yes, the future of manufacturing is going to be mostly, and maybe even in the private enterprise. The scare is with the advent of AI, a lot of jobs are going to get eliminated. A lot of things that we see, down to where you may have a coffee barista pouring you a drink that may be a robot. Okay, so the future will change, and I think the U.S. is best positioned if we capitalize and innovate and deploy that. And exciting times.
It's exciting times, yeah. I mean, you and I have been around the Silicon Valley long enough that people used to say, oh, the computers are going to put everybody out of work, right? But it gave us more work. Now we have bigger bandwidth, right? Yes. But it was interesting conversation today at the GPEC panel was the discussion of air taxis, right? So now Phoenix is very committed to their Waymos and the cars, with no drivers in and everything. And one of my friends was the other day, was in his car and he was saying, no, you go, at a 4-way stop. And his wife goes, no one's driving that car.
Exactly. I think it's going to be exciting. If you look at autonomous driving, self-driving cars, the technology is there.
Yes.
We have enough beta centers all over the world where a lot of the bench data and field data is being gathered. Mm-hmm. We may be slow in implementation given the legalities and the judicial legal systems, but I think it's going to be exciting. And that's where I meant. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a realignment of labor resources and all that going forward, primarily driven by the amount of automation and integration that gets done by technology. And get surprised. I'm not surprised that my next Uber ride may very well be. I'm seeing it overseas, where you can select a female driver or a male driver. You can select what kind of an Uber ride you want, and there is an option already being offered in some countries overseas where an autonomous car will come in, a driverless car will come in and pick you up. So those are great testing centers, and I'm sure we are watching that very closely to see how we implement that to the fullest in the U.S. over time.
Yeah, I'm sure that they were talking today about the autonomous flying taxis, the UberX or whatever. And basically it's the resources. Like, for example, in a 737, the pilot is the most expensive piece of the whole, overhead there, aside from the fuel. But basically, if you can remove the pilot and the co, then you have, a lot more flexibility on affordability and all these things. And the question, was
But
raised,
I'm not flying without a pilot.
I know, right? I know. That was everybody's issue, too. They'll taxi around town, but they're probably not going to go 30,000 feet, right? But
I think you look at what a pilot has today. He's got an iPad.
Yes.
All his maps, all his manuals, everything is on iPad.
It is.
And the automated capability of a plane to manage and chart its own track and everything. So yes, there will be a hybrid of a pilot's expertise, security, and backup versus a computer's efficiency of automation.
Yes, our pilots are often, it's been, it's monsoon here, so they're like, oh, it's stormy, I'm going to take it off autopilot and fly it by hand. They're so excited to be able to fly by hand or land by hand, they're losing their skills, right? So it's always super fun to get a thrill ride. So anyway, I appreciate your inputs as always.
My pleasure.
Thank you for coming on the show today. And that wraps up our Behind the Screen podcast here at Spirit Electronics.
Great, excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for listening with Spirit this week. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast to let us know what you want to hear about in aerospace and defense. You can find out more about Spirit's value-added services and product lines at spiritelectronics.com.